Hello, and welcome to this week's program of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. My name is Farheen, and I thank you all for joining us today. Each week, we connect with and hear from speakers who usually have a message focused on our love for innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. Today, I would like to introduce you all to our speaker, Co-Executive Director of Yoga Service Council, Pamela Stokes Eggleston. Pamela is also a sleep wellness coach and a HeartMath coach, an editor, researcher, author, and yoga therapy graduate. Pamela will be presenting on the Yoga Service Council, which is a collaborative community that welcomes yoga and mindfulness teachers, educators, researchers, health professionals, and more. I want to give a quick shout out to our very own Nan Heron for helping make this connection. And so with that said, Pamela, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Farheen, and thanks to everybody for asking me to be on this. I'm really excited to present about the Yoga Service Council and what yoga service is in general. So let's get right into it. So what is yoga service? The history of yoga as service really began when in 2009, a lot of yoga teachers around the country kind of responded to this need for an expanding access for yoga in diverse group settings. So yoga in inclusion, yoga with a sense of belonging. And so there were some folks that met at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York in 2009 and came together to form this gathering called the Yoga Service Council. And so we've been around for 10 years and we have done a lot of work in this space with yoga and a commitment to service. Yoga and service really means how can we involve communities and how can we heal communities? And really, if we take the context of yoga as therapy or therapeutic yoga and bring it into communities, that's really yoga as service and how we can serve marginalized populations of folks, perhaps kids in schools, yoga in prisons, yoga for vets, which is my kind of vantage point, and other places. So that's that. And so our mission is to maximize the effectiveness, sustainability, and impact of individuals and organizations working to make yoga and mindfulness practices equally accessible to all. So that's really about inclusion, and it's also about accessibility. But even more than that, it's about a sense of community, what these people in this space are doing in terms of yoga as service and how we can work with these populations. So this is our vision, that we are the leading organization of yoga service to help build communities, grassroots cultivation, continuing education, professional development in this space, and a universal model for uplifting ethical and social responsibility for everyone involved. And so we have our board members here. I'm just going to go down a quick list of the board. You can see that we have some great advisors. But what's really most important here is that most of the people that we're involved with are yoga teachers and something else. Like Nan is a yoga teacher and a psychiatrist. And so we have a lot of people, yoga teachers and lawyers, people who are working in this space, but also have this connection to other avenues and communities, i.e. mental health, hospitals, businesses really. My connection to vets is that I am a child of an Air Force veteran. I am the grandchild of a World War II Army veteran who served in Atlantic and Pacific in a segregated military. So so we talk about things like intergenerational trauma. And my husband's also a Purple Heart veteran. And so I got involved inadvertently. That was not the plan, but sometimes when you really care about something and you're authentic in that space, then things organically happen. And so that's what happened for me in this space. My co-ed Amina works in the prison systems. She works in juvenile justice where she is today. And it organically happens. So let's talk about the definition of yoga service. Yoga service is the intentional sharing of yoga practices that support healing and build resilience for all, regardless of circumstance, taught within the context of conscious relationship rooted in self-reflection and self-inquiry. So what that means in layman's terms is conscious relationship, being present in relationship to yourself. As yoga teachers, we need to really make sure that we have our own contemplative practice and that we do our own work. So I have a daily asana practice, breath practice, meditation practice. I'm also really inquisitive about myself. Why am I feeling this way today, even when challenges come up? And so the part of yoga service is that, and you can see this kind of Venn diagram, is that it's the root of that. You have to have self-inquiry and reflection. You have to do your practice. You have to be in conscious relationship with yourself first before you can develop that with others, any students that you're teaching, anyone in the space, right? So there's that. And so we have our best practices series. So this is really our kind of one of our flagship programs. We have many, but the best practices symposium is a yearly thing that we do at the Omega Institute, where every October people come to the Omega Institute for a week. We sort of pull information from people working in these specific fields, and we develop really a lot of good content and put it in these books. So as you can see, our first book was Best Practices for Yoga in Schools, which was really amazing. It's still used in a lot of schools across the country, inner city schools and the like, even in other schools. And Best Practices for Yoga with Veterans, of which I was a contributing author and editor, was the same way. We set it up for a week. We all did writing chapters, and it was amazing. Best practices for the criminal justice system. We're currently finalizing best practices for survivors with sexual trauma. That was actually our longest symposium. We actually did 2 symposiums, one year and then one the next, because Me Too movement, and because of Time's Up, and because the problem is so pervasive now that the information that's coming was really, we didn't want to stop that process. Our next book, which we're doing this month in a couple of weeks, where Nan will be joining us, will be around addictions and recovery. So this, and really looking at our society and how we can use the tenets of yoga to help us kind of improve, to help us alleviate suffering and make sure that the communities know about us, right? So using these guides, the Veterans Book, for instance, has been distributed throughout VAs across the country, across the nation. Lots of people working, for instance, at Walter Reed Hospital, lots of VA centers, lots of VA hospitals. So there's that. So this is the process that I spoke to. So you have the symposium, plus the book equals the entire best practices project, right? So the symposium's a week, and it's a week, and people get excited about it, but much of the work is done before the week, and a lot of the work is done after the week, because you have to do a lot of this writing, pulling together. We have this phenomenal editor, Dr. Danielle Russo, who's a professor at the Boston University, that helps us kind of pull all of this stuff together. And this year we have a publisher, Handspring Publishing. We're really excited about that, because prior we were self-publishing, but this year we actually got a publisher. So this is really amazing. And the work, that means that the work is really improving and taking off, and more people know about the Best Practices series. So I'd like to really kind of go into this space of how the symposium is collaborative. It's non-hierarchical, which is really a Mennonite's kind of tenet of more horizontal leadership, instead of this kind of vertical, old school model of vertical, 5 levels down, bureaucratic, I'm telling you what to do. Really, it's about a collaborative and interdisciplinary team approach that we take with the symposium and other projects as well. So our goals, bringing all of these different, various, diverse, and inclusive voices together as possible. Creating this opportunity for co-creation and cooperation in this space. So this is the collaborative model. We don't know of any other group doing it. And in fact, we're working on a summit with some other partners in the space that will be in March, that we're kind of taking some of the tenets of our best practices project and using with that, because it is so effective. As you can surmise, sometimes there's some challenges in these groups, people with various opinions, but everyone's being heard. We cultivate safe and sacred space so that people can kind of process their traumas. A lot of people suffer from some of these issues, like we had with the sexual trauma. We had survivors come in and work through some of their stuff really there as they were sharing. Some people that are dealing with the addictions and recovery book have experienced recovery and addictions themselves. So it's really important to bring those types of people along, as well as people that have helped on the outside. Maybe they haven't been afflicted by that, but that have been ardent allies in this space of working with folks from these populations. This other program we have is amazing. It stemmed out of our sexual trauma work with yoga, has been the pledge. So you can see on this slide, it's this communally kind of university inclusive agreement that we have different studios that have yoga, or wellness studios even, kind of post somewhere that everyone can see, that say we will agree to hold space for people, that we will not participate in this kind of damaging, triggering behavior. And so we're really excited about it. We love this dog. Someone sent us this picture with the dog next to the pledge. So it's amazing. So we have this hashtag called the pledge, and it's an initiative stemmed out of the best practices for survivors with sexual trauma that we're pushing forward with. So we're really excited about that as well. And so we have the book release coming. We had 2 symposiums. We also, from the pledge, had a community resource paper that's available to our members that was really well researched. It's like 15 pages. It's amazing. This fall, in a few weeks, we will have an online course kind of tying all this together for yoga practitioners, yoga teachers. We're going to have scholarships available. That's going to go up any day now. So we're really excited about that. And we'll probably be launching that in November, but we'll have it out soon. And we've gotten support from Lululemon for that. So we're really, really grateful for how that's moving along. We also have a membership. So membership is kind of our flagship, which has helped us kind of thrive as an organization. So we have these 4 levels of membership, 4 levels: individual members, organizational members, sustaining members, and a new level of endowment members, which is $1,000. Individual members is $50, organizational members $150, sustaining members $300. And so this is an annual membership. This helps us bring these programs to folks and to our constituents. And many of the benefits have included little things like discounts on clothes, yoga clothes, and things like that. But one of the things that Amin and I wanted to wrap into that is to kind of have more tangible kind of takeaways. Like, can we offer mentoring? Like we offer, like, for instance, strategy lunches for our sustaining members. Like, how can we help you engage your yoga service organization in your respective area? What we're doing right now with our yoga service networks, which is a part of this whole membership process, is offer mentoring and guidance as leaders of this organization. How can I get a contract, for instance, with a local state jail to provide yoga within the walls, right? And so Amina can talk to somebody and say, oh, this is how I got this contract. I'm in the state of Delaware. I can share this grant with you. Those kind of things that really help the field grow, and also help our yoga service teachers become more empowered to ask for what they're worth, and to also partner with organizations that want to move into kind of a complementary way of helping these populations. So there's lots of ways that people are normally doing things. Oh, we'll have this cookout here, we'll have this, but this is actually tangible ways of working directly with the population. For instance, I've taught veterans at American Legion lodges, no joke. While they were smoking downstairs, drinking, I went upstairs in the little room and I've taught yoga there. I've also been at Walter Reed and I've been at USOs and taught yoga to veterans, service members and their families. So that's what yoga service is. It's really kind of the unconventional way of looking how we can go into our communities and work, and subsequently also take these services to studios who just don't know, who have just been teaching people but don't know that somebody may be from these populations that may be traumatized or triggered in some way. And so we also have our flagship program. I know I said all of them are flagship, but this is really the main one. Like our yoga service conference. Every year we have a yoga service conference at the Omega Institute that brings all of these folks together. Our membership, people that are in the yoga service space, people that are part of our yoga service networks, and come together. And it's really like a big healing community, like a big tribe that comes together. We have great speakers talking about yoga as service, talking about the research, talking about how they can leverage their yoga service business to actually earn money and to make a living from this. And so in 2020, our model is co-leadership, right? Amin and I are doing this co-leadership model. We wanted to see how that could be mirrored, and we're trying to mirror that with our breakout groups, our pre-conference intensives. We have some great plenary sessions talking about the neurobiology of yoga and how it can help underserved and disenfranchised populations. So mark your calendar. You do not have to be a yoga teacher to attend. You can be a yoga practitioner, you can be a social worker, a fireman, a police officer, anyone that is trying to bring mindfulness into these spaces can come to this conference and get a lot out of it. So it's 2.5 days over a weekend. It's phenomenal. And so I talked about all of this stuff pretty much. You don't have to be a healthcare providers. We have had a lot of counselors and school teachers come as well. And so we focus on this, and we've been doing this conference for, as you can say, years. It's been a minute. So this will be our 8th conference coming up in 2020. Okay. And so here are our outreach initiatives. And these are some of the things that we're trying to kind of build on and move into more. We have done some advocacy work. We're really, really strong with our relationship building and cultivation. Hence, we're doing this Rotary presentation, so we're thankful for that, right? Reaching out to people that have not normally been reached out to. Inclusivity in all yoga spaces. Reaching out to other populations. And what Amin and I want to work on is reaching out to the Hispanic population, which I'm doing. I'm actually met someone in Colorado at a conference I was speaking at, and we're going to do some more stuff where she does bilingual yoga classes. The disabled, working with other organizations that are working with accessible yoga and able-bodied yoga, and refugees. How do we connect with that population? Because as we can see and surmise from the news, that's going to be something that's going to be of a concern. Really kind of plussing up our education and professional development platform. So we have a webinar series. We have lots of webinars that we've done on yoga service, yoga for trauma, yoga with pregnant women that have trauma, yoga for vets, that kind of things. We're moving towards more of an online course base. So for instance, this year we did a race-based trauma online course that was extremely well received. It blew my mind because we had to put a cap on it. It was so amazing. We offered scholarships for it. The person that did it was a yoga service teacher and a yoga therapist. She's amazing. And she's a psychologist, so that helped, and talked about in this 6-part series how race-based trauma can affect anyone. And so, like I said earlier, our next online course will be the one around sexual trauma. So we're excited about that to be launched this fall. And we have live events. We've done lots of conferences. We've already been asked to do a couple of podcasts. I just recently got back from this really magnificent conference at the Omega Institute, Women in Power, that had like Tarana Burke there and a few other people. It was so amazing. And so we make a lot of connections this way, and really just kind of expanding our model and kind of our message for the inclusive yoga, and why we're doing it and why we're in this space. I see someone making the chat, so I'm just going to open this up. Oh, that's just not me. Okay. So sorry, just digressing. So here are our programs in a nutshell. So the Yoga Service Networks, we're still working on that. We have a few networks, Atlanta, Chicago, the kind of Michigan, Detroit area, the DC area, Philadelphia. We would love to expand them nationally and even internationally, because we see the need for them, and we actually have reached out. We have people coming to our symposium in 2 weeks, for instance, from the UK. So it's really exciting that they're doing a lot of great stuff in this space as well. So we're trying to strategize, like, how can we do that? We have the pledge, we have our membership community resource papers, we have teacher trainings that we're actually working on, kind of a weekend teacher training for 2020 with our race-based trauma teacher. And we have a blog that we're trying to plus up because we've gotten so many requests, and that was kind of put on the back burner for a while. But we've had so many emails and requests from people that want to write for us. And so we have to strategize how we're going to call that and do that as well. We're really excited about it. And our annual conference in May. So we're excited about that. So come on out. So here are our partnerships and alliances: the Omega Institute, Lululemon, Yoga Journal, Yoga Alliance, Yoga Mate, all of these people, Give Back Yoga Foundation, the Black Yoga Teachers Alliance, International Association of Yoga Therapists. So this is really, the partnerships and alliances look different for each of these groups. Sometimes it's let's swap marketing. Sometimes it's I talk at your conference, you talk at my conference. Sometimes it's fiduciary. Sometimes we've got a sponsorship for our conference. So a lot of these things overlap, and hopefully we can add the Rotary Club to that list, but it would be magnificent. But we are working with other alliances as well that are not kind of yoga-ish. So we're excited about that. And so these are our partners in service, the Omega Institute and Lululemon. They're two of our biggest supporters. And we couldn't really exist and do all of these different programs, including the symposium, including the conference, those two really being our flagship programs, without their help. I mean, Omega is just amazing. Lululemon has been amazing and really sponsoring it. And I would add to this list Yoga Alliance. I mean, they've been really forthright in stepping up and wanting to help us even distribute the best practices guides and books to their membership, because they're also a membership-based organization and they've been around for a while. So yeah, and that's it.
Great, thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind unsharing your screen so that we can all come back together. Great. Well,
Yes.
Pamela, thank you again so much for your presentation. I really love that symposium idea. It was fantastic. But before we go on to the question and answer period, I want to quickly introduce the other members on the call. So when I say your name, please wave. We have Charter President Russian Hurley, Member Dr. Nan Heron, Programming Chair Roger Plested, and perfect attendance holder Shag Shagrin, who is driving, so do not wave. Alrighty, so let's move on to our question and answer. So I will start with Nan.
Thanks, Raheen. Pamela, that's great. Thank you. As you know, I've been involved with the Yoga Service Council for some time, and I was hoping just to highlight a couple of things. The Yoga Summit Conference is in California, where a lot of us are. So I thought it would be worth mentioning that in case we, could take advantage of that connection. And then I was hoping you could say a word about the benefits of membership, and also just to kind of go over the issues of fundraising and the creative ways that you keep the organization going.
Okay, so that's a mouthful. So the summit is going to be in March, and I don't have the exact dates, but I think it's March. I'm going to look at my calendar, the weekend of March 20th, and it's going to be at Loyola Marymount University. We are still setting up the landing page of it for it, but it's going to be called the Evolution of Yoga. So we bought the URL. We are partnering on that with Accessible Yoga and Yoga Alliance. And this is really to kind of piggyback on what I said earlier, kind of taking some of our tenets of the best practices symposium process and putting into the summit, by which I mean, it's not a standard conference. It's it's a working meeting, right? You're coming to the summit. So we're going to have people talk about cultural appropriation in yoga, race-based trauma in yoga, accessibility, and some other things, and actually come together with some documents and do some work once we get there. And so as soon as I hear about more, about it, we're still working the details out. And it's like, hurry up and wait, particularly when you're working with our underwriter, who is Yoga Alliance at this point, and Accessible Yoga. So I would say Accessible Yoga is doing more of the logistics kind of thing, developing the program. Yoga Service Council is actually doing content, because we are really good. One of our strong suits is, as you can surmise with the community resource papers and the guides, is developing content and really having that matter in this yoga space. So that's what we're working on with that. For Nan's other 2 points, the membership has its benefits. So there's many benefits, and I didn't even go over all the different kind of discounts you get for Savannah yoga clothes and other kinds of things, because I think that's kind of standard. But what isn't standard is you get benefits to one, you're part of a community that's huge and growing. That's the first thing. But the other thing is you get benefits to look at all of the webinars. And when I tell you we've had superstars doing our webinars, like Rhonda McGee, Dr. Gail Parker, you know, a lot of people that are on the front lines really working in these spaces. Hala Curry, who's well known and does some work with Sean Corn. And they've done all of these really substantive webinars that our members have access to. And so that's our webinar library. That to me is worth the price of admission. But then what we also offer is you one-on-one, like kind of mentoring with members. And we've actually been asked to do that. And so that's why we set up, we have to do maybe some strategy lunches with people, or just kind of one-on-one mentoring, which we've actually done. We have a newsletter, but that goes out to everyone because we kind of want everybody to know the whole message and stuff. So that's not really a perk of membership, but that's it in a nutshell. And what was your last thing, Nan, about the...
I was hoping you could just educate us as to how you manage fundraising for the organization.
So I manage it. It's interesting. I mean, Nan knows. So what has happened over these past, I would say 2 years, is we've kind of grown exponentially. So the fundraising has been kind of a slow walk for us, where we stayed in our lane of going to yoga organizations. Lululemon we're giving out money to yoga service organizations. So we did a grant, we got the grant, that kind of thing. So then when I got on board, I said, this isn't sustainable. If we want to keep doing this really good work with the best practices, and we want to kind of change our platform to kind of an online learning environment, while we kind of raise the bar on our conference, we need to look at other funders. And so I started really cultivating and working with Yoga Alliance more. I worked with Yoga Journal to at least get some kind of media coverage and things like that. We work with a lot of people to give us marketing, but that has been more of a strategic partnership building an alliance first, and then kind of reaching out to say, hey, do you guys have a foundation? And so what happened with Yoga Alliance over the course of the 18 months I've been ED is they split off into kind of two things. They had the Yoga Alliance, and then they actually have the foundation. So you go to the foundation and you kind of ask for money, but they're still kind of intertwined, and that organization still kind of working out that kind of division. But really being able to balance that and looking at places like Whole Foods, other places that I've been reaching out to, Wegmans, to kind of take us out of this whole, let's just ask for yoga money, and into the space of let's ask for money, because we are working in hospitals, in schools, you know, in prisons, in VA hospitals. And so going to those people and going to those places that may know other folks in a way to get money so that we can leverage our programs. So I hope that answered your question, Ann.
Thank you. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then next we have, so Roger, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. It seems to me that what your organization is a grouping of people who are interested directly or indirectly with yoga. And you can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I have a few questions about outreach. Well, let's be specific. Let's say in Detroit East. Do you have an office in Detroit East? And Detroit East is the area which is a very poor area of Detroit, and where you have a lot of people who are in poverty and could actually access your types of programs. The other thing is, for those people, what sort of cost would be entailed for them to participate in your program?
Okay, so I'll answer the first part with, we don't have a brick and mortar office. So like Rotary, we are national. So when we go and travel around the country, we galvanize our members who are everywhere to then support the organization. So by the Yoga Service Networks, what they do, and the one that's in Detroit, is they're on the ground. I can't speak to the folks who are dealing with these impoverished areas, Flint, any of that, where they're having water issues and things like that, because I don't live there. So we use the Yoga Service Networks to leverage that and have those people go into those specific areas to offer some kind of alleviation of suffering. And by that, I mean, yoga is not just kind of this one-off and panacea. Yoga involves movement, breath, alleviation of suffering. And as a yoga therapist, I use it to work with MS patients, chronic pain patients, folks that are missing, amputees, vets, and everything, to help them heal. So that's how huge it is. And I would also add to that, that when you are working with people in these spaces, that there's some modicum of social justice and community involved. So if I know somebody on the ground knows about Flint because they live there, because they're having water problems, but they also teach yoga, then they're able to do that. So the cost of whatever people say they want to make costs, and often these folks are providing these services, including myself, for free. So what I have done in my work is, hey, can I reach out to USO or something? For instance, I have a contract with a nonprofit called Hope for the Warriors, so that I can get paid for my work and my worth. I can offer stuff to Wounded Warrior caregivers for free. Okay, I can offer stuff to Wounded Warriors for free. So everything, things are free, but they're not free. But to the people and the communities that we're serving, there should be some level of either free or just really, really cost-effective affordability. And that requires funders. And so that's my job. I hope that answers the questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we have Rushton.
Thanks so much for the presentation. When I think about something like yoga and service, right? So like the yoga programs that you guys have brought together, in kind of the popular imagination, people don't see it, right? They think of yoga as like, oh, that's something I do on Saturday or whatever, right? As opposed to, no, this is this service that can be there for underrepresented groups, and a lot of possibility. My guess is that in bringing the two together, you've had a lot of people come to you who are quite supportive, who you really kind of wouldn't have expected, right? So they're coming from areas where they're like, we've been doing this over here, and it's really inspiring to see what you guys are doing. Have you had that kind of experience as you sought to develop the organization?
Yeah, and I have some historical context where it's blossomed. When I was on the board before I became ED, it was just like, wow, I didn't know this was out here. And I knew I was doing, and I felt like I was alone. Okay, so I'm going around to VAs, hey, I can teach there, and getting doors slammed in my face. And I actually have connected with some people that were working in the space of yoga for vets. And they introduced me to a lot of people. So all of this is relationships, right? Everything you do, I don't know how people run stuff if they can't build relationships. I have no idea how to do it. So you run through and you meet these people, and they say, hey, there's a Yoga Service Council, which I heard about 5 years ago. Do you want to go to a conference? They have scholarships. I'm like, right, because I'm broke right now. I left my good, corporate job, to do this. I'm trying to make a difference. Yeah, I'll go. And so I went and I met Amina. Okay, so we hooked up, right? And I'm like, oh my God, and we connected, right? It was just a complete relationship. Amina had been on the board longer than me. They asked her, and then I was still doing my work. And so being in these spaces was really a connecting measure, and it made me feel like I wasn't alone. Every year, and Nan can attest to this, every year somebody says, I know I'm not alone. I feel like I'm not alone. I'm in rural Nebraska or somewhere providing, yoga to, anything, meth addicts. I'm doing this yoga. So it's really, how can we help the alleviation of suffering? How can we get people to move through their bodies, breathe, use the breath properly, and get some modicum of happiness and joy in their lives? And that in turn is going to make you healthier. This is all about well-being, but it's also about social consciousness and awareness. And so as we go through our kind of days and hours and even minutes looking at, oh my God, we can be like glass half empty where it's so horrible, but we're offering a glass half full approach to yoga as service. And seva is service in Sanskrit. So we try to practice seva in everything that we're doing.
Great. Thank you very much. So seeing as there are no more questions or comments, so Rotary members and guests, please make sure you fill out the attendance section and leave us a comment. Also, if you have an awesome idea for a program, please use the link below to submit your ideas. Thank you again so much. Thank you, Pamela. And I will turn it back to you for your final words.
Okay, my final words is if you are in social work, if you are a psychologist, if you're a psychiatrist, if you're a doctor or nurse, if you have a practice of yoga, but you want to, you know, it feels good in your body, but you want to do more, join us, become a member, help us further our mission, help us grow the projects and the programs that we have going. I'm Pamela Stokes Eggleston. You can reach me at pam@yogaservicecouncil.org.